Out here in the Wild West, secrets don't stay buried for long, and some are too dark to even whisper. Before we dive into this chilling tale, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that will keep you hooked until the very end. Now, let's begin. The desert night was colder than anyone expected. The wind howled through the mesquite trees, rattling their branches like bones. Coyotes cried in the distance, their voices echoing across the empty prairie. Rancher Elijah Moore had been riding home late from town, the moonlight guiding his horse down the dusty trail. He wasn't a man easily frightened. He had fought in skirmishes, seen blood, and buried more than a few friends in the red dirt of the frontier. But that night, something felt wrong. As he rode past an old abandoned church, his horse suddenly stopped, ears pricking and hooves trembling. Elijah squinted. There was something lying near the broken wooden steps, something wrapped in cloth. At first, he thought it was just rags left by drifters. But then, he heard it, a soft, shaky voice, weak, barely a whisper. "Please, help me." Elijah slid off his horse, boots crunching on the gravel. His hand rested on his revolver, just in case. The figure on the ground trembled, the cloth shifting. He crouched low. "Who's there?" The bundle shifted again. Then, a face appeared from under the torn fabric, pale, dirty. A woman's face, with eyes wide and glistening in the moonlight. "This isn't my body," she sobbed. Elijah froze. He had heard desperate cries before, but nothing like that. The words hit him like a bullet. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice steady but uneasy. She clutched the cloth tighter around herself, shaking her head violently. "I don't belong in this body. Please, don't let them find me." Elijah's stomach tightened. The desert was full of liars, outlaws, and tricksters, but this felt different. The woman looked terrified, as though every breath was borrowed time. He reached forward slowly, peeling back part of the cloth just enough to see more. And what he saw made him stumble back in pure shock. Scars. Strange marks carved into her skin, symbols he didn't recognize. They looked burned, as if seared into her flesh by something cruel. Or unholy. Elijah's throat went dry. "Good Lord." The woman grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "Don't look too long. They'll know. They'll feel it." "Who will?" he demanded. Her lips trembled. She looked past him into the trees. "The ones who gave me this body." The air turned colder. Elijah's instincts screamed at him to mount his horse and ride away fast. But something rooted him in place. He had found women in bad shape before. Runaways, captives, widows abandoned by the cruelty of the West. But this one, she spoke as if she was living inside a nightmare no one could wake her from. He took a breath. "You're safe now. I'll take you back to my ranch. No one will hurt you there." The woman shook her head violently, clutching his coat. "No. If I step on free ground, they'll come for me. You don't understand. This isn't my body." Her words chilled him, but Elijah wasn't about to leave her alone in the dirt. He lifted her carefully, placing her across his horse. She was light, far too light, as though she hadn't eaten in weeks. As he swung into the saddle, she whispered, "You've doomed yourself, rancher." The night grew silent. Even the coyotes stopped howling. Elijah rode into the darkness, the woman's words heavy on his mind. And though he didn't know it yet, that single choice, to touch the cloth, to take her in, would lead him into a truth so dark, so twisted, that he would question everything he thought he knew about the West, and about the souls that walked it. Elijah Moore didn't speak a word on the long ride back to his ranch. The woman, whoever or whatever she was, lay draped across his horse, clinging to him as if he was the only rope keeping her from drowning. Her strange words echoed in his head again and again. "This isn't my body." By the time he reached his ranch, dawn was breaking over the desert hills. The sunlight spilled across the land, chasing away the chill of night. But instead of comfort, it revealed just how strange his situation had become. Elijah carried the woman inside, laying her gently on a cot near the fire. She pulled the cloth tighter around herself, refusing to let him see more of her skin. Her eyes darted around the cabin like a hunted animal. "You're safe here," Elijah said firmly. "Ain't nobody coming for you now." Her lips trembled. "You don't understand. They'll know I'm here. They'll feel it. I shouldn't have let you touch me." He frowned. "You talk like you're cursed." Her eyes met his, hollow and wet. Cursed, number, worse, stolen. Those words sat heavy in the air. Elijah pulled up a chair, leaning forward. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Clara." Elijah nodded. "Clara, you're safe here. But you need to tell me what happened. Who hurt you?" Her hands tightened around the cloth. "They took me. Took my soul out and forced me into this." Elijah stared. "You mean those scars?" She nodded, tears spilling now. "Every mark, every brand. It wasn't just on the flesh. It was on me, inside. They called it a binding, said I would live in this body until they chose to end me." Elijah's jaw clenched. He had heard many stories on the frontier. Indian curses, witchcraft, soldiers' superstitions. But Clara's voice carried no hint of a tale told for effect. She spoke as though she had already lived through hell. "You're talking nonsense," Elijah muttered. But the way the fire flickered, the way the air felt heavier in the room, it made his stomach twist. Clara lifted a hand and showed him her wrist. The skin there was marked with a symbol, an odd circle with jagged lines running through it. Elijah had never seen anything like it. He reached forward, almost without thinking, and brushed his fingers against the mark. The moment he touched it, he froze. His vision blurred. His ears rang. For just a heartbeat, he wasn't in his cabin anymore. He was standing in the middle of a dark canyon, the sky above swirling with black clouds. And there were voices, dozens of them, whispering, chanting, clawing at his mind. "This isn't my body. This isn't my body. This isn't my body." Elijah gasped and yanked his hand back. He stumbled from the chair, nearly falling against the wall. Sweat poured down his face. "What in God's name?" he whispered. Clara looked at him with hollow eyes. "Now you see. You touched it. You felt them. They won't stop until they get me back." Elijah's breath came fast and shallow. He had fought bandits. He had faced guns in his face. He had seen blood and death. But never had he felt something so wrong, so unnatural as that moment. Still, he couldn't just abandon her. "You're staying here," he said, voice hard. "Whatever this is, I'll keep you safe." Clara shook her head slowly. "You can't fight them, rancher. You can't even see them, and the longer I'm here, the closer they'll come." Elijah walked to the window, staring out across the empty prairie. His ranch looked the same. His cattle grazed in the distance. The world hadn't changed, and yet he felt it. Something was coming. Behind him, Clara whispered, "They'll be here by nightfall." Elijah gripped the window frame until his knuckles turned white, and for the first time in years, he felt fear. The sun sank low over the prairie, painting the horizon in red and gold. Elijah Moore stood on his porch, rifle in hand, scanning the land. Every muscle in his body was tight, every instinct screaming that something was coming. Inside, Clara sat huddled by the fire. She hadn't eaten all day. She barely moved, only muttering to herself every so often, words too soft for Elijah to catch. When the first sound came, it wasn't what he expected. Not horses, not wagons, not boots. It was whispers, carried on the wind. Elijah froze, rifle raised. The voices seemed to curl through the air, rising and falling like waves. Dozens of voices, maybe hundreds. And though he couldn't make out all the words, he caught one phrase over and over. "This isn't my body. This isn't my body." His heart hammered. He turned back to the cabin. "Clara!" She was already on her feet, clutching the cloth tighter around herself. Her eyes were wide, wild with terror. "They found me." The whispers grew louder, circling the cabin. Elijah stepped inside and barred the door. His dog, Scout, whimpered and pressed low against the floorboards. Clara clutched Elijah's arm. "You can't shoot them. They don't bleed." He shook her off, jaw set. "Everything bleeds." Then, bang! The shutters on the window slammed open, though no hand touched them. Cold air blasted through the room, snuffing out the fire. The whispers became screams. Elijah spun, rifle raised. The room darkened, shadows crawling up the walls like black snakes. And in those shadows, shapes began to form. Figures. Thin, twisting figures with faces like smoke. Elijah fired. The rifle's blast lit up the cabin, tearing through one of the shapes. It let out a shriek that rattled the windows before it dissolved into smoke. But 3 more took its place. Clara fell to her knees, covering her face. "They want me back. Please, don't let them take me." Elijah's mind raced. He couldn't fight smoke, couldn't fight shadows. But the mark, the scar on her wrist, his stomach clenched. Maybe that was the key. "Clara!" he shouted over the chaos. "How do I stop this?" Her voice cracked. "You can't stop it. You can only trade it." "What the hell does that mean?" Elijah barked, firing again, the recoil jarring his shoulder. She looked at him with eyes so desperate they almost broke him. "Someone has to take my place. That's the only way." Elijah froze, her words echoing in his head. "Trade places? Take her place?" The shadows pressed closer, their whispers now a roar. His dog whined, backing into a corner. The walls shook as if the cabin itself would rip apart. Elijah's instincts screamed at him to run, to grab his horse and leave her behind. But he couldn't. Something deep in him, maybe stubborn pride, maybe something else, kept him rooted. He stepped toward Clara. "There's got to be another way." She shook her head violently. "You don't understand. This isn't my body. They stole me, forced me in here. And now, unless someone takes the curse, they'll drag me back." Elijah's throat went dry. For a split second, he considered it. Taking her place, bearing that curse. But before he could speak, the shadows surged forward, and everything went dark. The cabin shook. The fire roared back to life, though no one touched it. Elijah blinked, his rifle gone from his hands. The figures had vanished, leaving only Clara, collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. The whispers faded into silence, but the mark on Clara's wrist glowed faintly, like embers burning in the night. Elijah knelt beside her. "Clara, what did you do?" She coughed, eyes glassy. "I didn't do anything. They did. They've marked you now, too." Elijah looked down at his own hand. His skin was raw and red where he had touched her scar before. And in that moment, he understood. He was part of this now, and there was no going back. Elijah Moore woke with a start. His body felt heavy, like chains were wrapped around his chest. The cabin was silent except for the faint crackle of dying embers in the fireplace. Clara lay asleep on the cot, her breathing shallow but steady. For a moment, Elijah thought maybe the horrors of last night had just been a bad dream. But then he looked at his hand. The skin along his palm and wrist was marked. Faint, jagged lines glowing a sickly red. The same pattern burned into Clara's flesh. He swallowed hard. "Lord help me." He stood, pacing the cabin. His dog, Scout, wouldn't even come near him now, just growled low from the corner, ears flat. Animals always knew when something was wrong. By midday, Elijah tried to work, tending to his cattle, mending a broken fence, anything to keep his mind busy. But every time the sun hit his skin, he saw it. The faint glow, brighter under the light. And worse, he heard whispers, not loud like before, just a faint hiss in the back of his skull. Words he couldn't quite make out, but they were there, circling his thoughts like vultures circling a dying steer. When he returned to the cabin, Clara was awake. She looked at him, then at his wrist, and her face went pale. "They've started on you." Elijah dropped his gloves on the table. "What does that mean?" Her voice trembled. "The binding is spreading. They don't just want me now. They've tied you to me. That's how it works. One body to the next. If you don't fight it, you'll end up like me." He slammed his hand against the table. "Enough riddles. Tell me the truth, Clara." She flinched, then nodded slowly. "The truth is, I wasn't born in this body. I was taken. I lived in another town, far from here. But one night, men came. They dragged me from my home, tied me to a table, and carved these marks into me. And when I woke, I was here, in this body. Not mine, not who I was." Elijah's jaw tightened. "You're saying they stole your soul?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Yes, and they'll do it again. That's why they're hunting me. They don't let go of what they take. They just move it along." The room fell silent. Elijah's mind churned. He'd heard stories of cults in the desert, whispers of men who worshipped the dark instead of God. He never believed them. But now, with that mark on his wrist, he believed. That night, Elijah tried to sleep, but his body burned with fever. Every time he closed his eyes, he was back in that canyon. Black clouds above, voices chanting below. And he saw himself lying on the ground, bound in cloth, whispering the same cursed words Clara had said. "This isn't my body." He jolted awake, drenched in sweat. Clara sat across from him, her eyes dark and hollow. "They're almost here," she whispered. Elijah's stomach twisted. "How do you know?" Her lips trembled. "Because I can feel them inside you now, too." The air in the cabin grew colder. The fire died down to nothing but embers, though no wind had touched it. Outside, the cattle bawled in panic. Scout barked and barked until his voice broke. Elijah staggered to his feet, rifle in hand, though he knew it would do little good. And then, faint at first but growing louder, came the sound he dreaded most. Whispers. This time, though, he understood them. "Trade the body, trade the body, trade the body." Elijah's hand burned like fire. He fell to his knees, clutching it, feeling the heat crawl up his arm. Clara scrambled to his side, holding his shoulders. "They want you now," she cried. "They'll tear you apart if you don't give them someone else." Elijah stared at her, his chest heaving. "You mean I'd have to pass it on?" She nodded slowly. "That's the only way I survived." The room swam before his eyes. Sweat dripped into his mouth, bitter as bile. The voices grew louder, pressing into his skull. "Trade the body, trade the body." Elijah shook his head violently. "No, I won't damn another soul." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Then they'll damn you." The cabin door rattled. The windows shook. The whispers outside swelled to screams, and Elijah realized the night wasn't going to end without blood. The cabin shook as though the prairie itself wanted to split open. Windows rattled in their frames, and the walls groaned. Outside, the wind screamed with voices, not human voices, but something darker, older. Elijah staggered to his feet, clutching his burning wrist. The mark glowed brighter now, searing red lines crawling up his arm. His body felt heavier with every heartbeat, like the curse was sinking its claws deeper into him. Clara gripped his shoulders. "You have to choose, Elijah. Trade the curse, or let it take you." His jaw clenched. He'd lived long enough to know life in the West was cruel. Men killed for land, for cattle, for nothing but pride. But to damn an innocent soul just to save himself? That was a cruelty he could never stomach. The whispers pressed harder into his skull. "Trade the body, trade the body, trade the body." His vision blurred. Shadows bled through the cracks in the walls, twisting and writhing, stretching long fingers toward him. One shape leaned close, its smoky face hovering inches from his own. Its eyes glowed like hot coals. "You are ours," it hissed. Elijah shoved Clara behind him and raised his rifle. He fired into the shadow's chest, and the blast lit the room like lightning. The figure shrieked, dissolving into smoke, but three more swarmed in its place. His rifle jammed. His strength faltered. The curse was eating him alive. Clara screamed, clutching her head. If you won't trade it, then they'll take both of us. Elijah dropped the useless rifle. He fell to his knees, his breath ragged. The voices clawed at him from inside, pulling him down into darkness. And then something inside him shifted, a memory. His father's voice years ago when Elijah was just a boy. Son, a man's worth is measured by what he's willing to give, not what he's willing to take. Elijah's eyes snapped open. He looked at Clara, terrified, broken, clinging to a life that was never hers. And he understood. The curse was built on selfishness, on trading one soul for another, on survival at any cost. If he refused that chain, maybe he could break it. With a roar, Elijah grabbed Clara's marked wrist and pressed it against his own burning hand. The marks flared, searing their skin together. The shadows shrieked, their voices twisting in fury. Clara gasped, "No, you'll kill us both." Elijah's voice was steady. "Not both, just me." The cabin exploded with light. The shadows wailed as if torn apart. The air itself seemed to rip open, a black void sucking them back into whatever pit they came from. The voices faded, weaker and weaker, until silence filled the cabin once more. When it was over, Elijah lay on the floor, his chest still, his face calm. The mark was gone from his flesh, burned away. Clara crawled to him, tears streaming down her face. She pressed her ear to his chest. Nothing. For the first time in years, her body felt light. The chains that bound her had lifted. The curse had broken, but Elijah had paid the price. She whispered, voice breaking, This isn't my body." Then she looked at him one last time and added, "But you gave me back my soul." As dawn broke, Clara buried him on the hill overlooking the prairie. No headstone, no words carved in stone, just a simple wooden cross. And as she walked away, free for the first time, the wind carried only silence. No whispers, no screams. Elijah Moore was gone, but in giving himself up, he had ended the curse that haunted her. And in the Wild West, where cruelty ruled and mercy was rare, that was a story no one would ever forget. And that's the end of this Wild West story, where fear, sacrifice, and mystery ride side by side. If you enjoyed the tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so you never miss the next story waiting just around the bend. Until then, stay curious and stay brave.